Welcome to today's Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break, where we are thrilled to welcome Lillian Kuri to the conversation. Lillian is an architect of spaces and places and of people, the former by training as a licensed architect and the latter by passion with a vision for what our communities could be. Since August 1st, she is the lead architect of what the country's oldest community foundation will be. She made history in becoming the 10th leader and the first female leader of the Cleveland Foundation and has been working feverishly ever since. Her current design work is the creation of a visionary strategic plan to shape our community foundation as the community foundation of the future. This work is informed by over 25 years of immersion in planning and in the community. Her fingerprints can first be traced to the citywide plan for Mayor Michael White, and since then on the revitalization of Greater University Circle, creation of the Evergreen Cooperative, arts initiatives such as the Foundation's Arts Mastery and Creative Fusion, the Centennial Lakelink Trail, the Nord Family Greenway, and of course, the Foundation's move to Midtown and the creation of an innovation district. Through all this, her focus is on equitable and accessible urban design and inclusive and equitable community building. She firmly believes that building operations and trust are at the core of the Foundation's work. In addition to the awesome responsibilities she holds at the Foundation, Mayor Bibb tapped her to lead the Cleveland City Planning Commission. Her awards are numerous: Women of Note, Leader of the Year, Woman of Achievement, and Female Architects Shaping Cleveland. With familial roots in both Lebanon and Brazil and work that has taken her all over the globe, Cleveland is her chosen home. As she said, "I want to make an impact. Hands down, it's Cleveland. There's nowhere else I want to be." And we're very glad you are here. Welcome, Ms. Kuri.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me first? What an amazing introduction. So really thoughtful and beautiful. And so I really, really appreciate it. Such an honor to be here, and so many friends and partners in the Zoom today. Really love this format. 15 minutes and then 15 minutes for Q&A, although it's going to be really hard for me to tell you everything that I want to tell you in 15 minutes, but I'm going to try my best. And I'm going to try to tell it with just a handful of slides. They're just images to really capture the journey that the Cleveland Foundation is on, that we've embarked on, starting more than 5 years ago with the move to Midtown. But it was more than about a building. It's about who we want to be as a community foundation and how we want to be for the next 100 years. And the move started that journey. And as I show a little bit about why we moved, I'm also going to share going forward how this will translate into the Cleveland Foundation of the future in terms of the work we do and how we're going to partner with the community in whole new ways. So it will start with the journey of the move, just to give you the big drivers for that have to do with how we got here and where we're going. And then I really am excited to take any questions. You're gonna have to tell me if you can see my screen. Somebody might have to wave just to make sure. Is it good? Yeah. At the Cleveland Foundation, our move was really not about a building. We saw that being in the Hannah building and Playhouse Square for 30 years, we were really inaccessible. I think we really felt like when you came to visit us that we were behind the curtain, and we like to say in our ivory tower. And the big shift was, could we be more open and welcoming and transparent and on the ground? And the community's community foundation and what that would mean, and how the active moving would make us ask some hard questions about who we wanted to be as Cleveland's community foundation. So we started the journey, and it also caused us to ask, what is the community foundation of the future? And I'll talk a little bit about that as it relates to our strategy going forward. But a couple of the key drivers for moving for us was, or why we chose Midtown and Huff as the area we wanted to locate, in Playhouse Square, when we moved there 30 years ago, most of you know that the theaters were all boarded up and the wrecking ball was coming. And there was a time that this city almost demolished the second largest theater district in the country. And our foundation, and I like to give credit to, there was actually a woman who was interim who never gets credit for being the interim director of the foundation for 9 months. And she was there before Homer Wadsworth. It was, anyone knows Judy Rossin and Bob Rossin, it was Bob Rossin's mother, Barbara Haas Rossin. She deserves credit for actually doing the country's first loan, or PRI, from an endowment to buy the Bulkley and Seltzer buildings and to hold them while Playhouse Square formed. And our foundation was the first to do that. And I like to say the act of buying the theaters and stopping the demolition was clearly important from a resource point of view, but what was more important was it changed the conversation about how important those rich cultural assets were to the region and how that became the nucleus of the revitalization of downtown. So when we thought about why would we move, we weren't going to go from the 12th floor of the Hannah to another floor in an office building. We asked our question, could we do something that had that kind of time frame, that would have that kind of catalytic opportunity, and that would change the game in terms of our institution and who we want to be for the next 50 years. And that it did, as you can see from our move to Midtown. We believe that the vision is big enough that it's not about 1 or 2 years or a building or two, but it's about partnering with the community in a whole new way to think about the entire east side of Cleveland, the red line neighborhoods that have historically been disinvested and also have not received the same kind of investment over the last 10 or 15 years that other neighborhoods. So our move here is actually like Playhouse Square to say, can we work collaboratively with the community over the next 20 or 30 years to change that conversation to the neighborhoods? And I know Lejean's on, and Fatima, and the amazing existing rich cultural and community assets that are already here, that have been doing the work, and that need also to be celebrated in terms of how we change the conversation about how important the East Side neighborhoods are to the Cleveland and the region and to our history. And so that is the big goal. So we did move here, and in the physical act of moving, we did ask ourselves who we wanted to be as an institution in terms of how we operate. And those of you who've been to our building know that it doesn't quite feel like an office building. It really feels like a place that is for the community. We are tracking about 200 meetings a week at the Cleveland Foundation right now. Events, we had the Ohio Senate Select Committee hearings on housing here a week or so ago, with 7 senators and 80 people testifying. And it was exactly why we built the building, to open it up to the public and to have that kind of discourse at the Cleveland Foundation. Behind me is the second building. You can see it under construction. It'll be done by the end of the year, and it's really important collaboration between 7 institution and partners. I saw some of them on here. Jumpstart, who's anchoring the building, Case Western, Cleveland Institute of Art, Assembly for the Arts, UH has a center in the facility, ECDI, who's going to do a women's business center and lending. And really important is something that came out from the community engagement work that we did with the community and residents along East 66th Street, who came with us and a whole group of people to Memphis to look at the Memphis Cultural Corridor. And some youth and residents wanted to think about Black Cultural Corridor. And that group actually did the selection when we came back of the vendors in the first floor of this next building, which includes Black Frog Brewery, Cleveland's first Black-owned brewery, Tawana Scott Williams, who is Pearl's Kitchen, if you know her, who's in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. She'll have a restaurant inside there that is super cool, and a music venue that will have programming that there is actually funding for 5 years to pay musicians fairly to perform in the space all the time. So to kind of add that life, that the community said, I have to leave the neighborhood to go out to dinner, to do these kinds of things, and to activate 66th Street. But just that is not enough. I think really thinking about the whole area and district, and thinking about bringing back the Black-owned businesses and the ownership that was here before. So with all that, and thinking about, well, what does that mean for the Cleveland Foundation going forward? What do I mean by the foundation for the future? Is how do we translate the idea of the foundation being more open and welcoming and transparent to how we might be as a community foundation. What does that mean? And what it means is that we have to find more ways, and we will find more ways for people to participate in giving, where up to this point, we have our grant making, we also have the donor side of the house, our donor advised funds. But right now, to open a DAF, you have to open it at a certain amount. And so there are no ways for people to give directly to things or have many ways to participate in giving. This is a number of how much our field has changed that might shock you all, is that in the United States today, there is $400 billion of charitable giving every year. And of that 400 billion, 80% of it comes from individuals. And we think we're so important. Foundations, corporate giving, all that, it's only 20% of that. So individual giving, how people might give to their church, or how they might give directly, or how people give project to project or Kickstart, all that stuff is the future, right? How people give, and how can the Cleveland Foundation provide new vehicles, new ways for people to give directly to the community projects that are going on. So our strategy going forward, and our board approved in December a vision statement that says that we will focus on building a vibrant Northeast Ohio where no Clevelander is left behind. And that is a really important, simple sentence, but what it means is that we have to do both. We've always focused on one or the other, but a vibrant Northeast Ohio where there are jobs being created and the region is growing is really important, but it's not enough, and it's not even sufficient if we're also not helping everybody participate in prosperity. And while we help people in community, in the neighborhoods, in the core city, we can't do that also if the region is suffering. So we will be focused on that, and we will do it through kind of fueling the growth of our existing assets and our existing partners in terms of the growth of the region. We'll be focused a lot on regional land development with the mayor and others. And we'll also be focused on the neighborhoods on the east side of Cleveland, the historically red line neighborhoods from a neighborhood development point of view. And when I talk about people, our work is actually about helping people directly. We are going to focus on economic mobility and eliminating the racial wealth gap, both the Black wealth gap and the Latinx wealth gap, and doing that in many ways. And we'll do that through transforming giving. So my point about there shouldn't be only one way to give through the Cleveland Foundation. We've got to create new products and services that gets the money to the ground in community in a whole new ways that don't exist today. And as the first community foundation, we believe we can create the next models of giving that really do reach the ground in whole new ways. So we will do that. And we will also build an open platform, a digital platform that no community foundation has built to date, that also captures in some ways in digital transformation what our building captured here, which is to have a way for many people to participate in giving who haven't in the past been able to participate through community foundations. So I know I'm a little bit over. I will take any questions. And of course, that wasn't enough time for me to tell you everything. But I really want to thank you all. There are so many people who I see on the call who are partnered with us in everything from Midtown and all the work in Huff and on 66 and the many partners, like I saw Kim Milan somewhere on there, who used to work at the foundation, but now helping lead this building with us across the street. But you don't do this alone. I hope the next era of the Cleveland Foundation and the era of my leadership is one of collaboration and working together and not going at it alone. And partnership is key, not just with the new leadership in the city, but also in every way, shape, or form in the work that we all do together. And that is how I believe we're gonna change the game for Cleveland.
Lillian, thank you so much. And we have had a few questions start to come in.
Okay.
So we will start with, is the expansion of donor advised funds and supporting foundations part of the vision for expansion of community philanthropy?
Yes, I mean, most people don't know this, but that is our model. So we are one of a handful of, there are 2,000 community foundations, first of all. We started the field, and now there are 2,000 in the United States. And of those 2,000, the majority of them are actually made up mostly of donor advised funds. No one really knows that. They think we operate like private foundations, but we don't. We're just lucky, the Cleveland Foundation, since we're so old, there are 5 or 6 of us, like New York Community Trust, Chicago, the big ones who are old like us, who have the discretionary grant making that everyone thinks of us as, right? The money that we give out in grant making that we control, that our board controls, which is half of our endowment. But half of our current business is donor advised funds right now and supporting orgs and affiliated funds. And we have 650 donor advised funds or families that we steward their giving currently. It's grown almost 200% since I came to the Cleveland Foundation. The act of moving helped us create whole new ways, and we now have a Center for Philanthropy. So the one thing that we've learned through this is donors don't want us to come to their house and transact. They want to come into the community. They want us to connect them directly to grantees, not through us, and have them give their giving differently. So when I say build new models, I mean using our current donor advised funds and supporting orgs and affiliated funds, but starting to think about new ways to partner with them and create new products that connect them directly to the community and the nonprofits and the work going on in the community in whole new ways. That's the big transformation for us that kind of came out of this move. But the field is changing. There are a lot more players in the space, Fidelity's and Schwab's and others, that their DAF growth is huge. But that is 50% of our current business today. We're just going to do it better. And we're really going to, the thing that'll differentiate us is that we're going to get it to the ground in a way that's going to be different than the private competitors in the DAF space.
You mentioned donors looking to engage differently, and certainly we see younger community members interacting the world with very different ways. Could you expand on how you plan to draw them in and relate to their needs in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I mean, this is the piece of our strategy that we're now kind of building on, sort of what that will be. But the truth is the way people give today is dramatically different than it was. And I don't want to say we're behind, but we certainly haven't been at the forefront yet, but we're about to be in terms of how donors can give differently. So I'm going to give one example. There are many, but I'm going to give one that'll hit this home. So the one trend that we're seeing is that younger donors are much more interested in social impact investing. That is whole new ways that give vehicles that actually allow you to give to projects specifically or nonprofits in whole new ways. So we have a couple of donors who we have started to meet with who said, if we can help work with the Cleveland Foundation and create a new donor advised fund that for social impact investing, we will bring more money here and we'll give differently through a vehicle that allows you to do loans versus just grants. And so we're finding that the younger donors want to do things that are more direct like that, and they want to participate in creating the product itself and then being engaged that way. And so we are starting a pilot there. We're also starting to do something where we have donors who say, I'm really interested in education or early childhood, but I don't know how to give. And I don't want you to tell me specifically. I want you to help me think of a strategy for that. And then I want you to bring in people from the community who are doing the work on the ground, and I want to meet with them directly to design my giving. So younger folks want to think about strategies for giving, not just specific things to give to, and that's a really big trend. So we're building all of that into the work we do. One of the big changes I made in the first quarter was not to think of the foundation as just grant making and fundraising, which is our donor side of the house, but to really think more about growth and impact. And so now our donor officers, who I know a lot of grantees want to understand what donors are interested in, are now starting today, a quarter ago, going out with our program officers so that the donor team knows how to connect the dots between what grantees and community who are doing work are and donors who might have an interest. Believe it or not, those teams did not go out into the community together, and now they do. And that's just been a breakthrough for us.
You mentioned impact, and as you look ahead, how are you thinking about defining and measuring the impact of the foundation's work in a way that really keeps trust at the core?
I think impact is important. Everybody is sort of thinking about how you measure impact. I think you measure impact in a lot of ways. There's clearly kind of data around, are you moving the needle? And I think we'll start to look at, with partners, what it means to say, even though Cleveland's doing a lot of great things and there's a lot of great innovation and people are making good progress, the macro indicators of how a region is doing is not getting better. So poverty, income inequality, economic mobility. So the question is, how do we all work together to think about the big indicators that move the needle for the whole region? And then each of us do our part and understand how the progress that we all make ladders up to these big changes, these systemic changes in our community. And I think that's the kind of way that all the communities starting to come together to think about impact. But I think there's another important piece of impact for me, and those are the stories of people, the understanding of the human aspects of what this means to people's lives, and making sure that we stay focused on the stories that impact people and how we are also helping individuals through this, that sometimes don't show up in the data. So storytelling is really important. So.
As you look ahead, do you foresee encouraging mergers, consolidations among the hundreds of nonprofits that are in our community? It seems like our resources could realize greater impact if not spread so thinly.
I mean, I think this has been always a question. Cleveland has a tremendous amount of nonprofits in the region, which is a really good thing. Interesting, the nonprofit sector is a huge driver of jobs in the region. Art sector, the same thing, right? Big piece of our economy. But I think the question is really asking is, are there enough resources for everybody to do everything at a higher level? I think you're seeing a lot more collaboration and partnership, and what I would call structural partnerships, not necessarily consolidations or mergers, but people starting to structurally start to work together in a way that they're coming together to ask us for funding, that two organizations might come together. We're starting to see that a lot, and it's really encouraging. So the more that we see that and how people are tackling something together in a collaborative form, it gets easier for us to do more when we see that. And so I think that's a trend that we are seeing. I wouldn't call it like complete mergers, but these structured partnerships that are articulated in a way that would sustain over a long period of time and make greater impact.
The foundation over the past few years launched the Black Futures Fund and its focus on Black-led organizations. What can we expect as that moves forward?
To get myself in trouble, our goal is actually to endow it and a few other funds, right? Is that this has to be in perpetuity. The idea that we can't just we have to give the kind of permanence to the Black Futures Fund that allows it to sustain and grow and keep growing. And so, without giving anything away, but I think I did, our goal is actually to endow the Black Futures Fund and grow it to a really big level.
Lillian, as you look at 2024, what are some of your greatest priorities from your perspective in your role?
Yeah, I think my greatest priorities is first and foremost, over the last quarter, I've done a tremendous amount of listening, and a large amount of it in on the ground. Also in areas where I think communities where we need to be listening broadly. So I've done quite a bit in the Latinx community over the last quarter. Some of you know we also serve Lake and Geauga County, and making sure that I understand very different rural issues or other issues that are going on in Lake and Geauga, and not just Cuyahoga and Cleveland, but just a tremendous amount of listening. This crazy number, since we started the construction of the building and then when it got, I've done more than 300 tours, and those aren't just to show the building. I'm getting to know people that I didn't know, or I need to know better, or to build relationships. Since I've taken the job, I've met more than 40 donors one-on-one, really trying to get to know their issues. I've been out in the community meeting with new leaders to really understand priorities, and being on a regular basis with all our new civic leaders. And then just being out in the community. One of the things that I learned the most, I'm sorry to call her out, from Miss Lillian Kuri, from the work we did early when we were thinking about moving, is getting out and working with the community and being at the table, not just with what we care about or we think is important, but with the community, and being vulnerable and getting honest feedback. And I really welcome the true feedback from the community, because it's the only way that we can do better. And so even someone like Lillian, who gives us honest feedback all the time, even though we're in partnership with her, we need that all over the community to do better. So my priority is to be really open to that, and then to put that into action. Most of you who know me know that, I really like to get things done. But I think you have to do it first by listening, and then really trying to deliver on the promise of what's possible. And so that's what you'll see from me in the first year.
What should we be doing as a community to ensure that the current unsustainable number of nonprofits seeking financial support from our philanthropic community can become sustainable?
Well, I think it's similar to the earlier question you asked me. I think people should start to get together. I think organizations need to get together, and start to work together, and organize together, and bring resources together, and see what's possible by sharing space, starting to do things together, asking for money together, and see if also there are possibilities for organizations to merge or to collaborate, or so. But I think that's really for the community to start to organize around. But we are seeing a lot of it, to be honest, already.
We have time for one more question that just came in. And what is the biggest mark that you hope to leave on the city and our community from your time leading the Cleveland Foundation?
So I think for me, the biggest mark will be that, and it's already embedded in, I think, our new vision statement, which is the lives of the residents of Clevelanders need to be better than they are today, and connected to the growth of this region. How we make sure that our Cleveland residents and our communities today's lives are better, demonstrably better, is the measure of success, and that we need to make progress there. And I hope that is that in 10 years, or if I'm still here in 10 years, I hope I am, that I will be able to say that we can point to that, and we can point to that in measurable ways. And for me, that means really making progress on income inequality and the wealth gap, and really making sure that the community and the neighborhoods really capture the benefit from all the growth in the region for the people who are there today. That is the measure of success.